Imagine you're standing outside a grocery store, and in your left hand, you're holding this heavy 5 kilo bag of fresh, ripe fruit. I mean, it's bulky, it's weighty, you're actually putting effort into carrying it.
Right.
Now, in your right hand, imagine you've got just two tiny, brightly colored chocolate bars. Both of those hands, right, they cost you exactly 100 rupees.
Yeah, which is wild to think about.
It is. And, one of those hands is going to physically sustain your body's cellular functions for like almost a week. And the other one is going to leave you staring into your pantry, completely starving again in exactly 30 minutes.
Exactly. 30 minutes tops.
So today we are doing a deep dive into dismantling probably the biggest, most pervasive financial illusion that is currently hiding right in plain sight in your grocery aisle.
We really are. Because, we are conditioned from such a young age to view healthy eating as this, elite pursuit.
Oh, absolutely.
The overarching narrative out there always tells us that if you are on a strict budget, well, then your only mathematical option is the ultra-processed aisle. And we're about to completely tear apart the math on that assumption today.
I am so ready for this. And for you listening, we're pulling our data today from this really fascinating piece of source material. It's a script from a highly regarded wellness channel that originally broadcasts in Tamil.
Yes.
And it has this beautiful, almost rhythmic name, Ilithu Arokiam Ilithu, which translates to simple health is simple.
It's a great name. And what I love is that they aren't just operating on some high-level philosophy,
Right, they brought the receipts.
They absolutely brought the receipts. They anchor their entire argument in hard contemporary economic data, specifically real-world Indian market prices from July 2026.
And grounding this in July 2026 data, I mean, that is what elevates this from just a theoretical lecture to an immediate actionable reality check for anyone listening.
Yeah, because the source isn't looking at historical averages or some abstract nutritional index. They actually walked into a physical market, looked at the placards, recorded the exact rupee amounts people are handing over to vendors today, and just laid that data bare.
It's brilliant.
It really forces a direct confrontation between what we think we are spending and what is actually literally leaving our wallets.
Right, because we've all been there. You look at a pristine, organic grocery store with, the bamboo shelving and the ambient lighting.
Oh, yeah, the whole aesthetic.
Right, and you see these astronomical price tags on imported berries or whatever, and your brain immediately codes health as luxury.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, you swing by the local corner shop, you grab a crinkly bag of chips for 20 rupees, and your brain codes that as, pragmatic or cheap.
And it is such a trap.
It is. And I promise you, by the end of this deep dive, the way you look at a simple 100 rupee note, or really whatever small denomination you carry daily, is going to fundamentally change. But let's unpack the core philosophy of simple health first, because the channel comes out swinging against this entire modern grocery myth.
They do. And the manifesto of Ilithu Arokiam Ilithu is, well, it's incredibly subversive simply because it strips away all the noise.
Yeah.
I mean, the modern wellness industry operates on this model of artificial complexity. To sell a premium product, you first have to convince the consumer that their current simple methods are totally inadequate.
Right, like an apple isn't enough anymore. You need some rare extract.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we see the rise of these hyper-specific diet regimens or, imported superfoods like goji berries or maca powder and all these complex supplementation schedules.
It's overwhelming.
It is. The industry creates an aura of exclusivity. But the source text counters this by basically arguing that human biology hasn't changed. Simple, locally sourced, science-backed food habits are entirely sufficient.
Okay, but let me challenge that premise before we even get into the numbers. Because it is wonderful in theory to say health is simple, but let's look at the actual physics of a modern lifestyle.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, if I buy, say, 3 kilos of papaya and a bunch of bananas, I am entering a literal race against time. The clock is ticking the second I leave the store.
That's true. They ripen fast.
Right. If I have a busy week and those bananas go black on my counter, I haven't just lost food, I've lost actual money. Whereas a bag of extruded corn chips, on the other hand, is practically immortal.
Immortal is a good word for it.
It just sits in my pantry for 6 months. So doesn't the inherent risk of food waste make fresh produce inherently more expensive for a stretched budget? Like, we are paying for shelf stability.
So you are hitting on the exact psychological blind spot that the fast-moving consumer goods or FMCG sector relies on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You are absolutely correct that you are paying for shelf stability, but we need to examine how that stability is actually achieved and what it ultimately costs you. That immortality you mentioned, it's engineered in a laboratory. It requires chemical preservatives, modified atmospheric packaging.
Wait, what does that mean? Modified atmospheric packaging.
It means they literally flush the bag with nitrogen gas to displace oxygen, and it requires a complete stripping of the water content from the food itself. So you aren't just buying food.
You're buying a chemistry experiment.
Basically, you are subsidizing a massive industrial preservation apparatus.
Wow. So the convenience is essentially an invisible tax.
A massive one. I mean, the illusion is that the 20 rupee price tag on the chips represents the value of the food. It doesn't.
Right, because there's barely any food in there.
Exactly. You are paying for the nitrogen gas, the multi-layered aluminum and plastic film, the marketing campaign, and the complex logistics chain that transports these lightweight, air-filled bags across the entire country without crushing them.
Which takes up a ton of space in a truck.
Yep. The source text forces us to strip all of those hidden taxes away and look purely at the unit economics. And to do this, they employ this brilliant methodological shift. They standardize the metric to the price per 100 grams.
And this is where the math completely upends the narrative.
It really does.
Let's get into the raw data from that July 2026 market. The source lays out the per kilogram prices for everyday fruits. So watermelon sits at 20 to 35 rupees per kilo.
Super affordable.
Papaya is 30 to 60 rupees. Bananas are 50 to 80 rupees a kilo. Guava is 50 to 80 rupees.
Right. All very standard local staples.
Yeah. And even as we move to slightly more premium local fruits, muskmelon is 40 to 70 rupees, oranges are 100 to 180, grapes are 80 to 150, and apples range from 120 to 180. Pomegranates are on the higher end, at 140 to 250 rupees a kilo.
Notice what is missing from that list, though.
Aside from kiwi, which they noted is an expensive outlier, right?
It's exactly. Aside from the imported kiwi, these are predominantly domestic, agriculturally robust crops. The supply chain for a local papaya is radically different from the supply chain for a box of kiwi shipped in cold storage all the way from New Zealand.
Oh, for sure.
The local fruits don't carry the burden of international tariffs or massive fuel surcharges for refrigerated ocean freight. They just grow abundantly in the local climate.
And when we take those local per kilo prices and distill them down to a standardized 100 grams, I mean, the numbers are almost hard to believe.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so you take a watermelon at the low end of 20 rupees a kilo. That means 100 grams of watermelon cost 2 rupees.
2 rupees.
2 rupees. Even taking the higher averages, most of these staple fruits cost between 3 and 15 rupees per 100 grams.
Okay, I really want you listening to lock that range in your mind. 3 to 15 rupees for 100 grams of complex, biologically active plant matter.
Got it.
Now, we turn the lens to the snack data provided in the text. The items people reach for automatically when they want a quote-unquote cheap bite. A standard 50-gram packet of chips costs 20 rupees.
Okay, so let's do the conversion. To get to 100 grams, we double it. That's 40 rupees per 100 grams of chips.
Yeah.
Suddenly, our 3 to 15 rupee fruit doesn't look so expensive.
Not at all. And the disparity just accelerates as we move down the snack aisle. Biscuits range from 20 to 40 rupees per 100 grams. Instant noodles, which have long been hailed as the ultimate budget or poverty food, they come in at 30 rupees per 100 grams.
Wow, even the noodles.
Yep. Ice cream sits at 40 to 60 rupees per 100 milliliters. But honestly, the most staggering data point is the chocolate.
Let me guess, it's off the charts.
A standard 45-gram chocolate bar is 40 rupees.
40 rupees for 45 grams, meaning 100 grams of chocolate is hovering at nearly 90 rupees.
Yep.
That's insane. We are comparing fresh guava at roughly 6 rupees per 100 grams against chocolate at 90 rupees.
The standardization just shatters the mirage completely. The data definitively proves that junk food is not a budget option. It is multiples more expensive than fresh produce by weight. You are basically paying a luxury premium for low-tier ingredients.
It reminds me of the classic printer ink business model, but applied to human biology.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right, because You buy a computer printer for practically nothing, and you feel like a savvy consumer, like, oh, I got a great deal on this hardware.
Yeah, exactly.
Then a month later, you have to buy the proprietary ink cartridges, and you suddenly realize you are paying thousands of dollars per gallon for colored liquid.
Which is agonizing.
It is. The hardware was just a trap to get you on the hook for the consumable. And with these 20 rupee bags of chips, the cheap absolute price point is the exact same trap. We are getting swindled on the unit economics because our brains, they struggle to calculate price per gram on the fly while we're standing in a checkout lane.
The printer ink analogy captures the structural dissection perfectly. The FMCG companies are selling you the packaging, the branding, and the convenience, that's the hardware of the snack, so to speak, while providing an incredibly low volume of actual consumable ink.
And because the transaction size is so small, just handing 20 rupees to a cashier, it completely flies under the radar of our financial scrutiny.
Exactly. We categorize it as petty cash, not realizing that on a per-gram basis, we are dining at a premium price point.
But, if you are listening to this right now, perhaps driving or walking through a store, you might naturally be thinking, sure, the spreadsheet says it's cheaper per gram, but I don't buy my food in a laboratory by the gram. I buy it based on how hungry I am and what looks good on the shelf.
Which is a totally fair point.
Right, and the source text actually anticipates this exact skepticism. They don't just leave the data in the abstract, they scale it back up to a massive, visual, real-world purchasing scenario. They call it the 100 rupee challenge.
And this is where the abstract economics translate into physical reality. It's the concept of volume versus void.
Let's visualize the fruit haul first. According to the July 2026 data, handing over a single 100 rupee note buys you 3 to 5 kilograms of watermelon.
That is a lot of watermelon.
It's huge.
Huh.
Or you could walk out with 1.5 to 3 kilos of papaya. You could buy up to 2 full kilos of bananas or 1.5 kilos of guava. We are talking about literal back-straining heavy lifting here.
Yes. And what does that exact same 100 rupee note yield in the snack aisle?
A very light bag.
A mere 250 grams of potato chips.
Yeah.
Or 2 tiny chocolate bars. Or a modest stack of biscuits. I mean, if you were to place these two hauls on a large table side by side, the physical discrepancy is just shocking.
It really is. Like on the left side of the table, you have a sprawling mountain of food. It's dense, it's heavy, it's vibrant.
Yeah.
And then on the right side, you have a small handful of items that you could easily stuff into the pockets of your jacket.
The psychology of packaging plays a massive role in obscuring this reality from the consumer, though. Because a bag of chips is explicitly designed to occupy significant spatial volume on a shelf.
Right. They want to take up maximum real estate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember the nitrogen flush we mentioned earlier?
Right.
It doesn't just protect the chips from crushing, it puffs the bag up. It creates this visual illusion of abundance.
Oh, that makes sense.
So when you pick it up, your brain registers the size of the bag, not the microscopic weight of the 20 or 30 actual chips inside. The fruit, conversely, is completely unbranded and dense.
Yeah, a 2-kilo bunch of bananas doesn't take up much visual space at all.
So we subconsciously underestimate its financial value.
But let me push back again, because physical volume alone isn't the whole story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could go to a hardware store and buy 5 kilos of sand for 100 rupees. It's heavy, it's voluminous, but it has zero biological value. So just proving that fruit gives me more weight for my money doesn't automatically mean it's the superior choice for my body. We have to move from the economics of the transaction to the biology of the consumption.
Right.
What is my body actually extracting from that 3-kilo mountain of papaya versus the 250 grams of chips?
And that is the critical pivot the source text makes right there. It transitions from financial volume to nutritional density. The text explicitly contrasts the metabolic impact of these two hauls. So let's break down the cellular mechanics of what the fruit haul provides.
Let's do it.
Bananas, for example, are highlighted for potassium. And potassium isn't just a random mineral on a nutrition label. It is an essential electrolyte that dictates cellular fluid balance. It literally regulates nerve signals and muscle contraction.
Including your heartbeat, right?
Including your heartbeat.
And the text points out papaya for vitamins A and C. Guava, interestingly, is praised for having incredibly high vitamin C levels, which often far surpass oranges.
Yeah, guava is a powerhouse. And vitamin C is deeply misunderstood as just, something you take when you have a cold.
Right, you take a lozenge and you're good.
Yeah. But at a cellular level, ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, is a fundamental building block for collagen synthesis. It physically maintains the integrity of your skin, your blood vessels, and your connective tissues. Plus, it's a potent antioxidant that neutralizes free radicals generated by normal cellular metabolism.
The source also points out the vital hydration from watermelon and the crucial dietary fiber in apples. These are foundational human needs. But then we look at the snack haul. What are we actually funding when we buy the void?
Yeah, what's in the void?
The text points out the chips are loaded with excess oil and high salt, with virtually zero fiber. The biscuits are built on maida, which is refined white sugar, and industrial fats like palm oil.
And we really need to look closely at what those ingredients do inside the human body. Because maida is wheat flour that has been entirely stripped of its bran and germ. The fiber and the nutrients are just violently processed out of it, leaving behind pure, simple starch.
Which does what, exactly?
Well, when that hits your digestive tract, it doesn't nourish you. It spikes your blood glucose almost identically to eating spoonfuls of pure table sugar.
Oh, wow.
And palm oil, particularly when it's hydrogenated for shell stability, well, that introduces structural fats into your cardiovascular system that promote systemic inflammation.
So it's not just a matter of the snacks lacking the good stuff. They are actively delivering the bad stuff.
Exactly.
The source concludes this section with a devastatingly simple phrase: high money, low nutrition.
It represents the ultimate metabolic bad deal. You are paying a financial premium, remember the 90 rupees per 100 grams of chocolate, to acquire fewer essential nutrients while simultaneously paying to ingest compounds that actively disrupt your cellular function.
But hold on. Let's think about this. If the math is this objectively terrible and the biological return on investment is a net negative, why do we keep doing it?
Because they make it taste so good.
But human beings are generally rational creatures when it comes to survival, right? If a predator is coming, we run. If fire is hot, we pull our hand away. Why do we consistently, daily, walk into a store and willingly hand over top dollar to actively harm ourselves? We aren't stupid. There has to be a structural reason we are blind to this.
You're right, we are not stupid. But we are operating with evolutionary hardware that is entirely mismatched to the modern food environment. And the source identifies the exact mechanism used to exploit this mismatch. It all comes down to the science of satiety.
The 30-minute trap. When I read this part of the script, the entire grocery store dynamic suddenly made a terrifying amount of sense to me.
Satiety is basically the physiological state of feeling full and satisfied after eating. And crucially, it's the duration of time that feeling lasts before hunger returns. The source explicitly points out this universal experience. If you eat a packet of chips, your hunger returns in just half an hour.
I mean, we've all felt it. You spend your 20 rupees, you eat the entire bag, you literally lick the salt off your finger, and 30 minutes later, your stomach is hollow again. It's like you never ate at all.
Exactly. But if you take that exact same 20 rupees and consume 2 bananas, or a bowl of papaya, or a large wedge of that watermelon we discussed, the source notes that the stomach remains full for hours.
So we need to break down the physical mechanics of why this happens. Why does the chip evaporate while the fruit sustains?
Right. Let's look at what is actually happening in the digestive tract.
Yeah.
It is a combination of neurobiology and physical gastrointestinal mechanics.
Let's start with the fruit.
Okay, so fruits contain significant amounts of water and soluble and insoluble dietary fiber. When you eat a banana, that physical mass travels down your esophagus and enters your stomach. The physical volume of the water and fiber stretches the stomach wall.
Like blowing up a balloon.
Yeah. You have actual stretch receptors called mechanoreceptors lining your stomach. When they physically distend, they fire signals up the vagus nerve directly to your brain, essentially saying, hey, we have received physical mass, turn off the hunger drive.
Okay, so the physical bulk of the fruit triggers a mechanical off switch in the brain.
Exactly. Furthermore, the fiber acts as a metabolic net. It physically slows down the digestive process. The sugars in the fruit are released into your bloodstream slowly and steadily, which maintains a stable glucose level.
So no crash.
Right, this prevents the crash that triggers subsequent hunger. Now let's look at the bag of chips. The chips have been violently processed to remove the water and the fiber. They're entirely devoid of the physical bulk required to trigger those stretch receptors in a meaningful, lasting way.
But they taste incredibly satisfying in the moment. Like, you can't deny that.
Oh, absolutely. But that is the neurobiological trap. Food scientists engineer these snacks to hit what is known in the industry as the bliss point.
The bliss point.
Yeah. They calculate the exact mathematical ratio of salt, fat, and sugar required to trigger a massive release of dopamine in the reward centers of your brain. The salt hits your tongue, the fat provides mouthfeel, and the simple carbohydrates rapidly dissolve, spiking your blood sugar.
Think of your metabolism like a campfire, right? Throwing a handful of chips or refined sugar into your digestive system is like throwing flash paper onto a fire.
I love that visual.
You get this instantaneous, blinding flare-up of heat and energy. That's the dopamine hit. But 3 minutes later, the paper is gone, the fire is dead, and you are freezing again. Eating the fiber-rich fruit is like tossing a thick, solid oak log onto that fire. It takes a little longer to catch, but it releases a steady, warm, sustaining heat for hours.
The flash paper analogy is brilliant because it perfectly highlights the fleeting nature of the energy. Because the chips lack fiber, they are rapidly absorbed, your blood sugar spikes dramatically.
And then what happens?
Well, in response, your pancreas panics and dumps a massive amount of insulin into your bloodstream to clear the sugar. That insulin sweeps the sugar away so quickly that your blood sugar crashes below baseline.
It overcorrects.
Yes. And this sudden drop triggers an emergency hormonal response. Your body releases ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone.
So within 30 minutes, you aren't just mildly peckish, you are experiencing a chemically induced hormonal hunger panic.
Precisely. The snack essentially hijacked your neurobiology, bypassed your physical stretch receptors, spiked and crashed your blood sugar, and left you hormonally starving.
That is wild.
And because you are hungry again, you're highly likely to walk right back to the corner shop and spend another 20 rupees on another snack.
It is a predatory biological subscription model. I mean, you aren't buying food, you are paying a temporary licensing fee to not feel hungry for 30 minutes.
That's exactly what it is.
The chips don't fix the hunger, they just hit the snooze button on it. You have to keep paying the microtransaction over and over again to keep the alarm from going off. But the fruit actually cancels the alarm entirely because it provides the structural components the body was actually asking for.
When you frame it as a predatory subscription model, the true cost of that 20 rupee absolute price tag comes into terrifying focus. You are caught in a continuous consumption loop designed to extract capital from your wallet while providing zero structural benefit to your cells.
And this continuous loop, it leads to arguably the most passionate and consequential section of the source text. Because, look, it's one thing if an adult decides to rent 30 minutes of dopamine with a bag of chips, but the text makes this profound pivot to the generational impact. It looks directly at modern parenting and daily choices.
It does. The source holds up a mirror to a deeply normalized behavior. It observes that parents frequently, almost habitually, purchase chips, biscuits, and chocolates for their children on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's the after-school treat, the playground snack, the quick pacifier in the backseat of the car.
We've totally accepted it. It's practically socially invisible at this point.
But the text reframes this daily expenditure entirely. It asks parents to take the exact same money they are already spending on those snacks and redirect it toward bananas, guavas, papayas, melons, and oranges.
And importantly, it doesn't frame this as a diet. It frames it as an investment, a massive compounding biological investment in a child's future.
Right. The specific returns on this investment listed in the text are physical growth, brain development, immunity, and gut health. And we need to unpack how swapping a biscuit for a banana actually achieves this mechanistically.
We definitely should.
Let's start with gut health, because earlier we talked about fiber as a metabolic net.
Yeah.
But it does something much more profound in a developing child, doesn't it?
Oh, the impact on the microbiome cannot be overstated. When a child eats a piece of fruit, the digestive enzymes in their stomach break down the sugars and the easily accessible nutrients. But the dietary fiber, the tough structural part of the plant, it passes through the upper digestive tract largely intact. It travels down into the large intestine, the colon.
Where all the bacteria live.
Exactly. The human colon houses trillions of microorganisms. This is the microbiome. That dietary fiber from the papaya or the apple is the primary food source for the beneficial bacteria in the gut.
So you're feeding the bacteria, not just the kid.
Yes. And when these bacteria consume the fiber, they undergo a process called fermentation. And the byproduct of this fermentation is something called short-chain fatty acids.
Short-chain fatty acids, what do they actually do?
They are the literal biological fuel for the cells lining the colon wall. They maintain the structural integrity of the gut barrier, preventing pathogens from leaking into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
Furthermore, these short-chain fatty acids communicate directly with the immune system and the brain. They reduce systemic inflammation. When a parent feeds a child processed biscuits made of refined maida and sugar, there is zero fiber to reach the colon. The beneficial bacteria starve, the gut lining weakens, the immune system is compromised.
So a daily habit of feeding a child chips is actively starving their internal defense system, while a daily habit of feeding them a banana is actively cultivating it. That's a huge paradigm shift.
It is.
The source also mentioned brain development. How does this swap affect the brain?
Well, the brain is the most metabolically demanding organ in the human body. It runs almost exclusively on glucose. However, it requires a steady, stable supply of glucose to function optimally. We discussed the flash paper effect of refined sugars earlier, the massive spike and the devastating crash.
Right.
Imagine a child experiencing that blood sugar crash in the middle of the classroom.
They lose focus, they get irritable, they literally cannot concentrate because their brain is experiencing a severe energy crisis.
Precisely. The complex carbohydrates and fiber in fruit provide that slow, steady oak log burn. It delivers a stable, continuous supply of glucose to the developing brain, fostering prolonged concentration, emotional regulation, and cognitive development.
That makes total sense.
Furthermore, the micronutrients like the potassium in the banana or the vitamin C in the guava we talked about, these are critical cofactors in synthesizing neurotransmitters.
It is staggering when you put it like that. I mean, think about the lengths modern parents will go to in order to give their kids an edge,
Yeah, they'll do anything.
If a pharmaceutical company invented a daily pill that was clinically proven to stabilize a child's mood in the classroom, physically reinforce their gut lining, and provide the raw building blocks for a robust immune system, and they priced it at 15 rupees a day, parents would trample each other to buy it.
It would be a multi-billion-dollar industry overnight.
Right. But because this miracle intervention is disguised as a completely mundane, slightly bruised banana sitting quietly on a produce stand, it gets entirely overlooked. The lack of glossy packaging and a massive marketing budget renders its profound biological power basically invisible. We just assume that if it doesn't have a trademark and a cartoon mascot, it can't possibly be doing anything important.
It is the ultimate tragedy of the mundane. We have outsourced our trust to industrial food conglomerates, assuming that scientific processing equates to superiority, when in reality, the unbranded natural matrix of the fruit contains a biological complexity we're still struggling to fully map in laboratories.
And this realization that we are daily bypassing profound generational health benefits due to a psychological bias toward convenience and packaging, it brings us to the ultimate, inescapable conclusion of the source text. It forces us to confront the true, overarching cost of the choices we are making.
It really does. The text concludes with a manifesto that is as powerful as it is brief. It states unequivocally, illness is what is truly expensive.
Illness is what is truly expensive. That line fundamentally redefines the entire concept of a budget.
It is the crux of the entire deep dive. The modern fallacy we have all bought into is that health is an expensive luxury.
But it isn't.
No, it's not. The source empowers the individual by completely dismantling that narrative. By stating health is in your hands, it removes the barrier to entry. It requires no expensive medications, no imported super powders, no agonizing restrictive dietary regimens. It simply requires a return to seasonal, natural foods.
Food is medicine, the channel advocates. Choosing the right food is the best medicine. And they emphasize how simple the substitutions actually are. You don't have to overhaul your entire life by tomorrow morning.
No, it's about the micro decisions.
Exactly. Reaching for a banana instead of that 40 rupee packet of chips. Choosing a fresh, tender coconut full of natural electrolytes instead of an artificially colored high-fructose cool drink. Grabbing a local guava instead of a chocolate bar.
It highlights why the channel's name, Simple Health is Simple, is so brilliant. It isn't just a catchy title optimized for a wellness algorithm.
Right. Yeah.
It is a deeply sustainable, structurally sound way of life. It's a philosophy that strips away the relentless marketing noise and anchors us back to basic, undeniable biological truths.
Let's pull all these threads together because the journey this source has taken us on today is massive. We started by looking at the hard July 2026 economic data, shattering the foundational myth by proving mathematically that junk food is vastly more expensive per 100 grams than fresh fruit.
We visualize the sheer physical absurdity of the transaction, too. The towering kilograms of natural food versus the meager handful of processed snacks that the exact same 100 rupee note purchases.
We dove into the nutrient deficit, realizing that when we buy those snacks, we are paying a premium to acquire harmful inflammatory ingredients while starving our bodies of essential building blocks.
And we unpack the neurobiology of the 30-minute satiety trap.
Right, the predatory subscription model that keeps our blood sugar crashing and our wallets opening.
Exactly. And we reframed those mundane daily food choices, particularly for the next generation, not as petty expenses, but as critical, compounding biological investments in cognitive and immune development.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's the challenge I have for you. The next time you are standing in a store, whether it's a massive supermarket or a tiny corner stall, and you have a 100 rupee note or any denomination you use in your hand, before you hand it over, I want you to pause.
Just take a second.
Look at the bright, crinkly bag of chips, and then look over at the unbranded fruit. Ask yourself the pivotal question this source demands of us. Am I going to spend this money to structurally strengthen my body, or am I spending it for 30 minutes of fleeting engineered tastes?
It is a profound moment of agency, and I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building upon the text's assertion that illness is what is truly expensive.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we understand the mechanisms we've discussed today, the degradation of the gut lining, the systemic inflammation, the metabolic roller coaster, we have to ask ourselves a really difficult question. Every single time we choose the highly processed 40 rupee snack over the 15 rupee fruit, are we actually just taking out a high-interest, subprime loan against our own biology?
A subprime loan on your own body? That is heavy.
Think about the mechanics of a predatory loan. You get a tiny immediate payout up front, which is the bliss point of the flavor. But the debt begins accruing silently. It compounds in your cellular function, in your metabolic resistance, in the degradation of your microbiome.
The interest just keeps building.
Yeah. And decades from now, when that biological debt finally comes due, demanding payment in the form of chronic illness, pharmaceutical bills, and lost vitality, will those fleeting 30-minute windows of taste have been worth the ultimate staggering price?
That is a question that is going to echo in my head every single time I walk down a grocery aisle. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope we've given you the analytical tools to see past the packaging, understand the biological mechanics at play, and recognize the true raw value of what you are actually buying. The power really is in your hands. Make one simple, healthy choice today. We'll catch you next time.